A couple of months ago I was mugged whilst being out. I lost it completely, and the police ended up bounding me up, hog-tying me and putting me in the back of the van, taking me up to the custody centre where I stayed on the floor face down for 8 hours before I was seen by a doctor.
I had to fight everywhere, every part of the way to get any kind of help around my mental health.
Unfortunately, I've had my problems since the mid-90s, and in all that time I've only had 4 constructive hours of therapy.
I've been so psychotic and not known quite who I am that I've slept on the street of Brighton for 2 days and ended up getting picked up by the police, sectioned, thrown in a cell for the night.
Telling me that, you know, even in his family he gets stigma that he won't be asked to help with things because it's like, oh, he won't be able to do it, sort of thing.
You know, and I'm more than just the illness. You know, there's other sides to my life, you know, sort of a sister, an auntie. But when people hear, you know, you've got mental illness, that's you.
People who suffer from mental health problems face a bewildering array of symptoms, assessments and treatments. Added to this is the serious issue of a stigma and prejudice attached to their illness. How can perceptions change, and how would we go about trying to heighten the awareness of our understanding of mental health stigma?
I think we come from a very recent cultural history of mental illness being seen as weak, as bad behaviour, and being very heavily stigmatised.
But this idea that it's something that only happens to certain people is really, really not even accurate.
I read a postcard from Mind that said if your car breaks down you can get help within an hour, but if your head breaks down it usually takes about 18 months to get to the help that you need.
I had one person who said his friend's girlfriend, on learning that he had mental health, didn't want her boyfriend to associate with him anymore because she thought her boyfriend would, I don't catch it, or become mentally ill through association. And he said it was a taboo subject in his own family even.
I think people with mental health issues get called bums, and it's like we don't want to go out to work and move forward with our lives. I've got an example that I wanted to give you. I took my little girl swimming a couple of months ago to in Brighton, and because I was a prolific self-harmer in the past, they asked me to either cover up or leave, which I thought was a bit, which I took as discrimination against obviously people with mental health problems.
It's still the case that if someone goes for a job, they won't often say they've got mental health problems because they just think, well, I won't get the job, and how can anyone prove that was why they didn't get it?
I think stigma greatly affects the recovery of young people. Most young people that struggle to come to us in the first place, the reason they struggle to come is because of stigma. And they're, oh no, I don't want to see you, or, you know, they're going to think I'm mad, is basically what I hear most of the time. I'm not seeing you, people say I'm mad.
It seems that men are less likely to present to a GP and say, I have depression. I think they're more likely to say I've got a backache or stomachache or headache or my libido's gone, where women are more likely to go to their GP and say, I think I'm depressed.
Do you think there's a level of self-stigma in that case, like people with mental health issues feeling that they can't talk to other people because they feel that they'll be judged by it? Do you think there's that side to it, or do you think that...
Yeah, I went through a phase where I didn't want to ask for help because I suffer with, like I said, EID, and statistically 75% of everyone with it is female, and I didn't really want it to be known because I would have felt a bit emasculated by it. It's like the group that I'm in, I'm the only male there, and it does make me feel emasculated, but I have to do it because it is to help me manage my disorder.
So I think there are a lot of preconceived ideas about mental health services, and sometimes when people come in to see us, they are really worried that we're going to do something to them, that we're going to do something bad. We're going to take away their freedom. That's what's the real major worry that people have, that if they confide in somebody about their mental health issues, that what's happened is they're going to be placed under a section and bundled into hospital, which really hardly ever happens.
Traditionally, I think we're raised to have very, very low expectations of anyone with a mental illness. We might be brought up to think that someone with a mental illness can't be lucid or clear, can't make decisions, can't have a relationship or a career or a family, and all of those things are very much untrue. But the stigma is incredibly powerful, often at a very deep level inside people, and deeply affects many people's lives.
Can educating the public help us to understand the negative effect that prejudice has on the recovery of the people who suffer from mental health problems?
It's got to be schools, I would think, really, get people aware at an early age. Because, I mean, through my ignorance, really, I mean, before I was taking it, I had no real experience of mental health, you know. You heard these words bandied about at school and things like that, but nothing particularly educational from it, you know. So, no, I think that would be great, get people go around talking to schools as well. And again, with the proactive side, help people, help children perhaps not fall into the traps that a lot of my generation have fallen into.
How would I reduce stigma? It's got to start in schools. It has to start in schools. Mental health, good mental health issues, problems, illnesses have to be seen as normality, as part of life.
I suffer with stress-induced psychosis, which my partner can't handle sometimes, and if she can't get hold of an emergency psychiatrist, the next thing she does is phone the police. Now, I don't get treated like a normal person, I get treated like a criminal.
It would be great, and in many hospitals there is a section 136 suite, which is like a room where people who have been sectioned by the police can be put safely.
And the A&E staff and police don't understand the actual backgrounds, they're just there to stop the situation, and they don't look at the reasons behind. So you get, I mean, a few weeks ago I actually ended up in the police station, basically because I'd been sectioned with the police, and another problem at section 136 wasn't open, they didn't have enough staff, so I ended up going to the police station and being totally strip searched.
Unfortunately, there's not 20 of these rooms.
There's one.
So if 3 people have already been found on the street suffering from apparent mental health problems and causing a disturbance and being a risk to themselves or other people, if the section 136 suites are already full, they end up in the police cells because there is nowhere else safe to put them. And I think that is a horrible experience.
Someone to have the police turn up a situation and take control can be very frightening, particularly if that person's concerned that their rights might be removed under the Mental Health Act, or if they're concerned about being restrained. So you can understand that from both sides, feelings could escalate and the situation could be very difficult.
I think if the police can have people like a vice squad, a community liaison officer, then maybe they should train some of their force in mental health issues, so that when they do go to people's houses, they can help people with mental health issues.
We've trained a number of Sussex police officers in suicide intervention skills, and we found that has meant that the police have responded extremely well when we've phoned them up about someone, for example, who's on the edge of Beachy Head Cliff. The police have been amazing. They've liaised with us really closely. They've been very compassionate and considerate of the person's needs. Do we need the officers to turn up in plain clothes? Is there a risk if it's a man rather than a woman who approaches? So we found that bit of understanding has really helped to improve the service in that particular area.
The media is constantly mentioned in relation to its attitude to mental health in its reporting. Is it balanced coverage or sensationalism?
If the people who run the media actually emphasise more and not just used as sensationalism, then I think it would it would come across and people would understand. Because it's an easy option in the intellect to think, oh well, that person who suffers from that is fear, to be fear them. And I think sometimes it is natural to fear people who are different or behaving differently. And it's understandable as well, but I don't think stigmatising a person is the answer.
Whenever people are trying to tackle stigma, the first thing they say is the word stigma. I do feel like if we could change that, we could be a little bit further ahead. It's very negative, and it's always the stigma attached to mental health rather than mental health. Just everyone's got mental health, whether it's a positive or a negative thing for them. And I do feel like we should be trying to create awareness around mental health rather than avoid it, stopping stigma.
People were praising Hollyoaks for their story about psychosis just because they'd mentioned psychosis at all within a drama, but it was still this big freaky thing. And as someone who works in the service of psychosis, it's very rarely that exciting, and it's usually just a bit difficult to deal with.
Tabloids, for example, the red tops get away with using front page language like schizo, psycho, nutter, etc. when they're talking about someone with a mental illness. If they were using words, which I won't use here, racist words, for example, or very sexist words, they wouldn't be allowed to, or that would be considered discriminatory under current legislation. At the moment, however, that legislation doesn't exist to prevent that kind of language from being used, and I think it really does impact on people's lives.
Well, before I came here, I was drinking, I was cutting myself, I had suicidal thoughts. I had no purpose, and I watched a lot of Jeremy Kyle. But since I've come here, I've got a routine. My hygiene's improved. My motivation, inspiration, all the good words that end in ation have improved. And I hope to move on from here to. I want to stay in the third sector. I had an abusive childhood, so I'd like to be able to mentor children or young adults that have had the same problems as I've grown up as a child. And that's how I want to move forward with my life. But 6 months to a year ago, I didn't have no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
It's funny that this is an afterthought for me, but the other thing I wanted to say is that I have a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder. I see a psychiatrist, I have medication, and I've had some really terrible times with my mental health.
I'm sitting here talking to you happily about my mental illness, whereas I might not have done that 10 years ago. And I do think that over particularly the last sort of 10 or 12 years, I've been fully in the system. I've used the hospital service, I've used the outreach services, I now go to the day centres, so I'm still using the services, but I have seen them change an awful lot for the positive, and we've just got to keep our fingers crossed and hope that that continues and that the cuts don't actually affect that, because I think we were doing really well, we've been doing brilliantly.
There are other approaches, there are other ways of talking to people that actually pay them a lot more respect. And if that understanding is shown, I think you will find that the drugs bill will come down, the therapy bill might go up in the short term, but eventually that will come down, because as more people get to come through the situation more efficiently, if we can look at it that way, then you will have more people out in society that will definitely defeat the problem of stigma.
I guess what I'm saying is that maybe each of us needs to look inside and see what stigma there might be and how we can gently kind of wash it away or open it up to something else.
The Mental Health Action Group hope that this film highlights the damaging impact for the individual of being treated in a stigmatising and discriminatory way. If you or someone you know is struggling with their well-being or emotional support needs, they might be feeling scared, confused or alone. please let someone know. You can talk to your GP, a friend, a family member, or by contacting one of the support organisations listed. Talking to someone is the first step in getting help.